Hello and welcome to the No Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick McDonald, with me, co-host Finn McDonald. Today we are doing 5 players we like and 5 players we dislike for the upcoming 2025 MLB season. So before we start here, Finn, just generally, how did we go about finding these players that we have discrepancies on compared to, the average MLB fan? Yeah. How did you go about it? We'll start with that.
I went and I looked at stats to see if stuff was showing either a steep decline or a steep incline,
Okay.
or just something was like unrealistically maintained health wise because of the player's age, injury history, stuff
Okay.
like that.
So yeah, pretty general like progression curve type things. Um, Aging curve is kind of how you went about it. That definitely played a part for me. Another thing for me was uh what advanced numbers. There we go. I don't know why that slipped my mind for so long, but advanced numbers also played a part for me. Because I mean, these things are predictive of future success. Advanced numbers are. So, uh, how much did that factor in for you?
That did not really factor into it.
Yeah, which is fair because sometimes advanced numbers are pretty hard to quantify. I'll let you go first here, Finn. Who is your first player that you like? We'll start with players we like.
First player that I like,
Yes.
I would go with J-Rod because of his 2022 stats. His
Okay.
2022-2023. I just don't think they'll have a 2024 season because of those. I think that's more of a one-off. Fact just
Okay.
it wasn't there.
Yeah. So you like that J Rod will have some type of a bounce back season. Um, I like that for sure. He's also like, it's very rare that a guy is gonna have like a fringe MVP caliber first 2 seasons and then is just gonna hit a steep fall off uh every season in the first half. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
for him, it's really just about consistency because his first halves have been kind of pedestrian, and then his second halves have been out of this world, especially the past 2 seasons. So I really like that about J Rod. Did you have anything else on him?
Basically, how you just summed it up.
Yeah, I do really like the J Rod pick. I think it's easy to make that one for sure because I mean he's got MVP upside. So um, I'll say this: I do an annual top 100 list. Um, Basically, any player that I would say was in consideration for a top 100 list, I figured I'll address them in the top 100. So I went with guys that probably just aren't going to make that type of a list with my 5 players that I like, just so I can generally, say how I feel about these guys because I'm not going to have the opportunity to do it later. Um, that being said, I'm going to go first to a player who, maybe people still know he's good, but he had a really like decent season last season, Finn. Um, this guy had 99th percentile average exit velo, 99th percentile barrel percentage, 100th percentile bat speed, 94th expected slugging last year. Finn, do you have any guess who this guy is?
Don't, but off the top of my head, I want to
This is
say short long.
this is Giancarlo Stanton, Finn. Um, Stanton was sneakily back up to like his peak level of offensive production, at least in producing, solid contact. Probably even better than his 2022 season a couple years ago, where he was, still pretty decent. He overall hit around the same rate as he did in 2022. Thing with Stanton is, even if I do think that he's still going to be a pretty solid hitter at this point in his career, he doesn't bring you anything outside of his hitting. Therefore, he's not going to be a guy who makes a top 100 list, because he just doesn't bring anything else to the table. Even though I do think like this guy might be another, he might have a 35 home run season if he's healthy next season with, an 850 OPS. I think that is very feasible for him next year. So, what comments do you have on Stan?
He was one of, if not the best Yankee in the postseason.
Yeah. And I feel like that is why some people will still like Stanton going into next season. But I feel like some of that is just kind of an unrealistic ranking of players, or like just having a discrepancy on player value. But specifically compared to what a person who doesn't value DH production in a bad way, I feel like Stanton will have a pretty good year next season, if that made any sort of sense. That's how I feel about it. So, got any more Stanton things, or do you want to move forward to your next guy?
I'm going to move on to my next guy.
Sounds good.
And my next guy I like would be Jackson Merrill.
All right.
I have him having maybe even an MVP campaign type of year. If it wasn't for this guy named Paul Skeens, he would have won Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, he certainly would have. I mean, he had what is definitely an above average MVP season or Rookie of the Year caliber season.
So, all that above average comes with him playing center field.
Mm-hmm.
Premier defensive position, along with shortstop and catcher. For
Yeah.
premier defensive positions.
Yeah. Specifically on that, he played center field pretty well. Do you know how many professional innings he had played in center field before this year?
I don't believe he had played really any. At least not
I
in a
don't
major.
I don't know for sure, but it definitely wasn't many innings in center field.
And it isn't even that he played center field. He played center field, and then I don't want to say Gold Glover, but he played at a great defensive value.
He played it like at an above average rate in center field, which I wouldn't say I expected. I expected him to be all right. I was like, it's gonna be like a Trey Turner type defensive center field season, where it's like pretty good, or that's how he was. He was like a Trey Turner in his rookie season when he played shortstop, or when he played center field instead of shortstop. It would be something like that, but and that is a lot better than I was expecting out of Jackson Merrill. Primarily because I just didn't think he was quite the athlete that Trey Turner was, but Merrill certainly impressed me a lot this season as somebody who was a big fan of his game before that. So I really like the Jackson Merrill pick. Do you have anything else on Merrill, Finn?
Honestly, no, other than he really outperformed my expectations. I thought he was going to be an average player. He was well above average.
He was awesome. He'd be winning AL Rookie of the Year if he was in the AL. Moving forward here, a guy who I don't think he gets enough credit for what he did this past season. He wasn't qualified. He only pitched 123 innings and had a 3.3 ERA with a 3.2 FIP. And this was a rookie, Finn. Spencer Schwellenbach for Atlanta. This guy, he had a very successful rookie season. He struck out about nine batters per 9 innings. And he just creates a ton of chases, specifically with his slider. That's very good. Uses it 20% of the time. He has a cutter, he has a curveball, he has a splitter. He throws a sinker as well. He's got his fastball. Like, he has a great pitch mix, and he gets really good success, specifically with his slider and his fastball. He sits at average 96 miles per hour. He has pretty solid vertical break on his fastball. I think Schwellenbach is he feels to me better than Spencer Strider was as a rookie, and Spencer Strider really surprised a lot of people the next season when he came out and had a Cy Young type season. I'm not saying that I'm going to have Schwellenbach in Cy Young contention. I think he's a dark horse, but I really like what I saw out of him. Specifically, we're going to talk about it in my top 100 review when we do it. I feel like last year I would have ranked a guy like Schwellenbach for sure in the top 100, but it's tough to rank rookies because you're always just going to keep pushing them up because of how young they are. I'm not sure if that's why Schwellenbach's probably not going to be in the top 100, because I got hurt by a couple of rookies who did not take a leap. So, Schwellenbach, Finn, what do you think?
Isn't he the Braves pitcher that carved our asses up in game 1 of that doubleheader before their historic bullpen collapse?
Finn, I think Schwellenbach, I don't think he gave up a run to the Mets all year, and I think he pitched against us 4 times.
and we don't have a bad lineup.
And he had at least 45 strikeouts in his 4 appearances. Like, he carved us every game he pitched. I feel like that is part of why I'm a little more hip to him than a lot of people are, but I mean, this guy pitched his ass off all season, and he got better as the season progressed too. Maybe this is their next Max Fried after Max Fried leaves. Do you have anything else on Schwellenbach?
Not looking forward to seeing him pitch against the Mets in person again.
Yeah, when we inevitably go to an Atlanta series in August next season, I hope he will not be on the mound, to say the least. Yeah, moving forward here, who's your next guy?
My next guy is going to be Luis Gil, starting pitcher for the Yankees.
Okay. What's
Showed
the word
good
with
stats
Luis?
this year as a young starter. Honestly, needs to get in more innings.
Yeah.
He had something in the 140s range. But it's like a 3.8, 3.7 ERA. I could only really see that getting better.
Okay.
Or at least maintaining.
Yeah. I could see maybe some youth going with Luis Gil. You had mentioned before we started some overlap he didn't end up on my 5, but I did consider him for the 5 players I disliked. um, I still think he's very good. It's just I am a little concerned with him keeping the ball in the park. I'll hold it there. I'll let you say why you like him a little bit more, and we'll move to my next guy after that.
I honestly just like the strikeout stuff. Don't like the home runs per nine though. If you look at those,
Yeah, I mean his stuff is really great. He's gonna strike out a ton of guys. That's the appeal with Luis Heel, um, to say the least. I understand why you could like a guy like that. That advanced stuff at a young age, um, actually like you know appearing
also
at the big
another
league
thing is,
level.
can he find the strike zone?
Yeah, his walk rate honestly wasn't as bad as I expected it to be. I think he had debuted for a while. Like he had made a couple of big league appearances, and that was the big issue with him. We'll see with Luis Heel-Finn. Um, you got anything more on him?
I don't.
Okay, let's my next guy, Finn. Um, this for me is more of a trust in an organization than anything else. You get they made a trade at the deadline to move off of Isaac Paredes. In return, they get Christopher Morel, and I feel like Tampa Bay can really fix a guy like this. Um, he has insane bat speed, insane physical tools. He throws the ball really hard. Previously, he used to hit the ball really hard. Um, in 2023, like he kind of profiled as a fringe top 100 player, who just didn't have enough defensively to, actually be so. This guy runs really well too. I really feel like Tampa Bay can at least, fix up some of the outfield defense stuff and really make this guy like a really good defensive right fielder who pulls the ball in the air, which is what they did with Isaac Paredes. And I feel like he has a lot more raw power if that's the case, if they can really fix up some of his stuff to get him pulling the ball in the air more. Because god dang Chicago, like he wouldn't do those things. He would not pull it, and he would I mean, he would still pull it and he would still hit it in the air, but he wouldn't do them simultaneously very often. That's how I feel about Christopher Morel. I just more or less trust in the Rays organization with a guy like him. Um, how do we feel about Christopher Morel then?
I definitely think he's gonna have a better season than that second half he had in Tampa.
Yeah, and he did have a rough first half there. Um, some of that might have been them trying to adjust with him on the fly. That could cause some issues. Honestly, we'll just see with Morel. I feel like with him too, he hits a lot of pop ups. Um, he had a 12% pop up rate in 2024. Like, come on, man, like figure it out a little bit. Uh, yeah, we'll see with Christopher Morel. I think there's good things to come with him. So, do you have anything else on him? Any comments?
I like the right field pick.
Yeah, I feel like that's the best fit for him defensively because he's got a cannon and he's a pretty good athlete.
I actually value his arm.
Mm-hmm. All right, Finn. Moving forward now, who is your next player?
Tommy Edman.
Okay.
I can play a premier defensive position. Last 30 or so games has had like 7.3 OPS. That's, I believe, above average for the shortstop position.
730 at shortstop. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I mean, it's about for generally at shortstop. Yeah, this season was a really like high offensive shortstop year.
Okay. Good
But
fielding shortstop.
but generally 730 is pretty good for an offensive shortstop. That at least does the job, I would say. Moving forward, though, keep going with your Tommy Edman opinion.
Moving forward, I see him maintaining the offense, also getting a bit better on defense. Maybe getting that OPS up to like a 7.7.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. Previously, he had a lot more batted ball luck, to say the least. He would get a lot more. He would have higher BABIP before. That kind of wasn't there this season. There was a lot of injuries. He got traded at the deadline. He's a free agent currently, correct?
Correct.
I feel like there's going to be a team that takes a chance on a guy like Tommy Edman to play shortstop for them, and I feel like they're going to get pretty decent results, and he probably won't cost much. So
I honestly think he could go to the Padres after they get outbid on us on Kim.
I think that's a good fit. They could get a switch bat in there, in a ballpark that doesn't play really well for home runs either. So you don't really want the power hitter there. You want the contact guy. Yeah, I could see that, especially if they're going to lose Luis Ariz, which it's looking like they will trade him at least. So I do like the Tommy Edman pick, Finn, especially in San Diego, because we didn't talk about him in the free agency episode. All right. Moving forward, my next guy here, Finn. Let me just read off his baseball savant numbers. So last year he had a expected slugging of 503. He had a walk rate of 12%, a barrel rate in the 98th percentile, a hard hit rate in the 94th percentile, and a sweet spot percentage in the 91st percentile. Then you add in the fact that this guy switch hits. Finn, what do you think about a guy like this? Like, off the top of your head, who do you think this guy is?
Jorge Polanco.
No. As a Jorge Polanco truther, I wouldn't even think this is Jorge Polanco. I would think this is like Jose Ramirez somehow, but no, this is Michael Toglia, Finn. Last season, Michael Toglia underperformed his expected slugging by 44%, or 44, almost 50 points in Coors. Like, that's unheard of. You know what I mean?
I mean, Nolan Jones did the same thing.
No, that's a different expected slugging. Michael Toglia, based on how hard he hits the ball, you would expect him in Coors Field to have a 500 slugging percentage. I don't even think that accounts for him being in Coors Field. That's just saying across the average Major League ballpark, we expect with these batted ball numbers, he's going to slug 503. He slugged 456 last season. Like, realistically, like, is this guy going to slug 580 next year? Like, I don't know. It might happen. He has a 12% walk rate, too. I'm a little concerned about the chase and whiff stuff, but I mean, I really like Michael Toliafin. They might bring in some help in that lineup, but realistically, this is a guy next season who I think should have an 830 OPS or higher. Because I mean, even if you look at what he did do last season, he was about he's a 767 OPS, which is probably about league average in Coors Field, and he hit 25 home runs and 400 at bats. Like, I don't know, is this guy gonna hit 45 homers next year? I'll leave it up to you. What do you have to say on Michael Tolia?
Dang. It's definitely a player that could be under the radar for next season. Especially like you said, Coors Field.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not known to be a pitcher's park.
Yeah. To get batted ball luck in Coors Field and still have like a pretty decent season as a rookie, I don't know. I think this guy could be awesome. I'm definitely going to be drafting him in fantasy baseball leagues. I think Michael Tolia is awesome. He's going to hit for a ton of power next season. Watch out for this guy, especially if he's going to get traded to your team at the deadline in 4 years when the Rockies are still bad. So, you have anything else on him, or are you ready to go to your next guy?
I don't really have anything else on it. I'm ready to get to my next player.
All right, let me hear your final, right? Yeah, because you went first, so this is your last player that you like.
I'm going to go with Stephen Kwan for this one.
Okay. Explain the Stephen Kwan.
Honestly, I expect him to have batting title-esque numbers next season with the batting average, bolstering him to his first ever 800 OPS season. After having had a year where he had a 793.
Yeah. So you think there's going to be a step forward with Stephen Kwan? Or he's just going to get a full season this year versus last year where
he's going to get a full season. He's going to get a step forward on that batting average and in turn his on-base percentage.
And his slugging too. So you think that he's going to be more of what he was in the first half this past season, not having 3 weeks at the start of the season where he's out. That's kind of how you feel about it.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that for sure. I mean, if he hits 340 next season, unlike another batting champ guy who everybody knows about, like Stephen Kwan actually has a lot of defensive value too, and base running value. So that's going to be a really good player. I like the Stephen Kwan pick, and I think you're chuckling a little bit with my Luis Arias shot. Not so much a shot because he's a great player, but I think he's a little bit overrated by fans. Last player for me. I have to pull up. Well, I don't. This one wasn't necessarily a numbers thing. Last season, he had a rough start to the year after having, basically an almost career year in 2023. Gleyber Torres, Finn, we briefly mentioned him and the free agents video. I feel like this guy could just have a really nice bounce back season next year. We'll see what he does in free agency. Maybe he's a guy who doesn't want a multi-year deal. Maybe he's a guy who wants to prove himself and then get back on the market after this year. He had seen walk rates and K rates really improve for him in 2023, and then he comes into the year and that just kind of didn't happen to start the year, but in the second half, those were some pretty real things for him. and that continued into the playoffs. Gleyber Torres, Finn, what do you think?
Honestly, not a bad pick there. I see the logic. Has got to get his strikeouts down.
Because they went up a good bit. He also reasonably needs to get better defensively. So
I feel like also related. Like I am the disappointed Javier Baez.
Yeah, like sometimes he will have some egregious swings, but I mean, in 2023, like he didn't have that problem. He actually like had that as a strength of his. Um, specifically, let me pull it up. Yeah, like in 2023, he had a 70% walk rate and a 90 or percentile walk rate and a 91% K rate, percentile K rate. So some really good stuff right there. And that just took a step back in 2024, specifically in the first half. The K rate, his percentile and K rate dropped from 91 to 57. Specifically this year, he also did have a huge jump. Jump meaning good in chase rate. So like he chased a lot less this year. And the walk rate was about the same. So I could definitely see a better outcome for Gleyber Torres next season.
First player I dislike, Chris Sale.
All right, Finn. Firing off the hot takes instantly. What's the word with Sale? What do we have against Sale? Not have against, but whatever.
He's old. I doubt he's going to be able to make 29 starts. I doubt he's going to be able to maintain that 2.4 ERA. If he's healthy, I could see him having like a 3.8. And that's definitely a downfall from a triple crown.
I could see it. For sure. Just the aging curve is really hard to argue against there. And like I don't know, the health they got out of him this year was pretty outlierish. So I don't hate the Chris Sale take. I'm honestly not sure how I'm gonna rank Chris Sale. I have previously not ranked Cy Young candidates very highly. Just because I don't really care to just rank somebody because they won a major award in previous years. I think Robbie Ray I had ranked pretty low on my top 100 following a Cy Young. I think last season with Blake Snell, I had him pretty low following a Cy Young. I don't think that Chris Sale is immune to that. So I do see some merit to the Chris Sale take from you. I'll go into my first one here, unless you had anything else on Sale.
I don't.
Okay. My first guy here, Randy Arozarena. So last season, I did what I guess would be a controversial move, and I left him off of my top 100, even though I don't think he was really that close to a top 100 player over the past couple seasons. And it paid off for me this season. He definitely was not a top 100 player. And the numbers looked even worse than they have previously. His expected slugging was a 381. Like, this is supposed to be a guy who hits his way into a top 100 list. He didn't do that. He took a step back base running wise. And then what really concerns me with Randy is now he's about to spend a full season in the death sentence that is T-Mobile Park, where good hitters go to die. It's like the cores of hitters. If you're a hitter, you don't want to go here. So that's how I feel about Randy Arozarena. I'm not sure what we could expect out of Randy going forward. Really importantly, like he's about to hit free agency in 2 seasons. I don't think this is a place he wants to be about going into being a free agent pretty soon. So
he's probably gonna have to sign an improvement deal after this, just to prove he can still hit at a normal ballpark.
Mm-hmm. I hope he can, because he's exciting and he's cool, but when he's been playing over the past, even in 22 and 23, like, he just wasn't as good as people really like to put him as, and then combine that with what I am predicting to not be a very good season from him. We'll see. I hope he can prove me wrong, because he is very fun. Who's your second player that you dislike going into the year?
JD Martinez.
All right, let me hear it, and I'll probably agree with you.
Guys at DH who had a 7.25 OPS.
Yeah, I mean, you're coming at it definitely from more of a player evaluation standpoint.
Also, he's gonna be 38.
Yep.
I don't really see that getting any better. And from a DH, you have to hit the ball.
Certainly. I agree with you, Finn.
It's not like you can put him in the field. He's not a fielder.
It's just, yeah, at this point, he's going to be struggling to stay in the league. I feel like I definitely agree with the JD Martinez take. What else do we have on him, Finn?
I honestly struggle to see. Like, it would not surprise me if he missed time.
Yeah, older
Another
guy.
thing that's bad, particularly for a DH. Missing long periods of time.
Mm-hmm. Then you're not in rhythm as a hitter, and then what else do you bring? Yeah, I agree. You ready to move forward, or do you got something else? All right, Finn. So, who do you, player who had a sub-1 or a sub-2 ERA last season and 135 innings? Do you know who this is off the top of your head?
Paul Skeens.
No, I think he's higher than sub-2, but Reynaldo Lopez, Finn. Big reclamation project in Atlanta this past season. Let me just tell you, he's a good player, certainly, and I understand why Braves fans really wanted us to acknowledge when he was hurt, and how it was going to just, they would have easily made the playoffs if he was there, but Reynaldo Lopez, this past season, I mentioned the good success that he had. I think what's more important to bring up, he has like I said, basically a two flat ERA. His expected ERA 3.94. That's a huge difference. By far, I think the most fortunate player to batted ball luck this past season. Specifically with him, Finn, he had a .66 home runs per 9 this past season. This is while he has league average ground ball numbers and a hard hit rate and barrel rate in the 26th and 20th percentile with 34% ground ball percentage. This guy gives up a ton of fly balls, a ton of line drives, and last season he didn't get hit around for it. If I had to guess, yeah, he's gonna give up a lot more homers next year. The fact of the matter is, expect a 4.3 ERA from him next season. And if he's pitching to a 4.3 ERA, he might not get 120 innings. Like, that's the Reynaldo Lopez take. I feel like we're shitting on Braves pitchers here, but that's why I wanted to give love to Spencer Schwellenbach, because he's awesome. What do you have on Reynaldo Lopez?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I just don't think a 198 is sustainable.
Definitely not.
I could see, unlike you seeing like a 4.2, I could see a 3.75 to 3.9. But that's still a far cry from a 1.9.
Mm-hmm. And like a 3.79 isn't that crazy in low volume innings. Like he also would go out there and literally only pitch 5 innings a game. Not even really. Um, I don't see it with Reynaldo Lopez pitching at a near Cy Young level next year. Um, yeah. Next player for you, Finn.
Xander Bogaerts.
Probably our most historically trashed on player. Go ahead. What's the thing with Xander, Finn?
Guy's gonna pay $25 billion to play bad defense and have an OPS under 650.
It's bad. For sure. This is you're definitely looking at this from a more player evaluation standpoint, but I agree with you. Um, it's just very detrimental to the team to have a guy like that. So he needs to play better. What else do you have on Xander, Finn?
He's a player who I'd say needs to move to DH, but his offense isn't good enough to earn that.
Yeah. Um, big struggles from him. I generally agree with you. Um, it's a real pickle that they have themselves in because he's getting paid for basically ever now to be in San Diego. So,
Boston
do you
probably
have?
Boston probably thinking they're lucky stars they didn't match that.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Yeah. Do you have any other Xander Bogarts things just besides we don't think he's very good at this point in his career?
I don't.
Okay. Next up for me, um, this is maybe I'm reaching a little bit here, but I had to get somebody. Jazz Chisholm. Um, he had a really good time with the Yankees last year, and like I understand it, but generally this guy for the past couple years in his career has had ground ball rates at or around 50%. You're not going to have too much success hitting a ton of ground balls and having, average ability to hit the ball hard. I mean, in Miami a year ago, he was a little bit better on that standpoint, but yeah, this is just a guy who I don't see offensively with him unless this guy really, moves to center field. I'm not sure how valuable of a player he is. And yeah, getting Agustin Ramirez for him, kind of a great move from Miami, in my opinion. Um, how do we feel on Jazz Chisholm?
Yankees are killing the guy's value by playing him at third freaking base. Come on,
Yep,
Aaron Boone.
it's like
bang.
It's like his fourth best position to maximize his value at, and that was the decision that they made. It doesn't make sense while they're playing Verdugo out there in the playoffs. Like, what are we doing, man? Just
It's not even like Verdugo was breaking out.
Verdugo's horrible. I don't
I
know if
would
he
get
got a
it if he
hit
was
after the
breaking
All-Star
out,
break.
but he was basically like a pitcher up there.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Did he get a hit after the All-Star break last year? I don't know. He definitely did, but like, oh Jesus, Verdugo, man, he sucked last year. And when I said to some of our Yankee friends that Verdugo isn't very good, and there's a reason he got non-tendered, they're like, no, Verdugo's gonna change things here, man. Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. Who you got next, Finn?
Alex Verdugo.
Oh, well, shit. I mean,
Honestly, this one's just for the overration. I
let
just
me.
don't see him hitting well enough to be in left field.
I was gonna guess your argument. Your argument that he's not good at hitting and he's not good at fielding and he's not good at base running.
He's just straight up bad.
Yeah, how accurate is that analysis of Alex Verdugo, Finn?
That's accurate.
I'll say this: he was a pretty good defensive player last year, but uh, okay. You know how many players can give me solid left field defense?
I could get that out of Juan Soto, and his offense is a lot better than Alex Verdugo.
You can get that out of Jazz Chisholm easily. It's the big thing. Man, the Red Sox with the Green Monster, they might be able to get solid outfield defense out of Teoscar Hernandez. Like, man, I don't really care if Verdugo was a solid defensive outfielder last year. He doesn't hit, he doesn't base run.
Honestly, with the outfield, the only times I care if you're a good, solid defender is if you're at center. That means a lot. Oh, and I do somewhat care if you're a Gold Glover and right, but left, no.
I do think it does matter in the corners if you are a great defensive player, but I mean, you gotta just consistently be a great defensive player, right? Like Verdugo had basically a career season as a defensive player last year. Before that, he had been just a little bit above average, right? Above average defense doesn't get you paid in the corner outfield, right? Sure, he had an elite season this season, but overall, I would assess his talent as like a decent corner outfielder. And then if you're just decent, man, like you got to hit, and he does not hit. Do you have anything else on
look
him?
at JBJ. He was a good defensive outfielder, and he doesn't have a job because he can't hit.
Yeah. Guys stay around if they can defend in center. Guys don't stay around because they can defend in left field or right field. Just not a thing that happens. Moving forward, my next guy. And this one kind of hurts me a little bit because I do really like this guy, and I'm glad that he had a breakout season this past year. Because I think it's really weird if it would be really, really like messed up if I didn't like him having a breakout season. Tanner Houck, he had a really good year this past year, a 3.12 ERA, pitched in 30 starts, 178 innings. He had a great season, man. The big thing with him, he got a ton of ground balls. I really like that. That was a big part of his game. Thing with him, though, like, every year throughout his career, his K rates have just gone down and down and down. As a rookie sophomore player, they were around 11. Then the 2 years before this past year, they were around 8.4. This season, it was around 7.8 Ks per 9 innings. And a lot of his like hard hit numbers, his barrel rates, they are very similar to 2023. Same thing with his ground ball rates, right? Like this past season, it was 94th percentile before it was 89th. Barrel rates, hard hit rates are very similar to a year ago when Tanner Houck gave up 1.4 or 1.2 home runs per 9. I generally think that his home run rate will stabilize a little bit, even though I do think it's still going to be low per 9 innings. I think he's a guy who's going to settle in at more of like a 3.80 ERA guy. His xERA was 4.05. His xFIP was a 3.6. I feel like he'll generally be in this range as a pitcher. He doesn't walk guys, which is pretty big about him. Or he's cut down his walk rate a ton, and he keeps the ball on the ground a lot. But I do think that he is due for a little bit of regression, specifically with the home run ball, because a lot of his numbers look very similar to how they did in 2023, where he had a 5 ERA. So, you have anything on Tanner Houck?
I don't.
All right, I'll let you go for it then.
This pains me by Michael Nelson Trout.
Okay. And this is because of his health.
Yes, his health, and I honestly do not think he's a center fielder anymore.
Okay.
I think for his health's sake, they have to move him.
Mm-hmm. I think he still could definitely play center field. I think he graded out pretty average as a center fielder last year. But they're going to move him out of center field just to keep him healthy. And I think that is a big factor for him.
That really is the end of an era for Angels.
Yeah, Trout's no longer playing center field. He's playing left field now, but he's no longer playing center.
And yes, I do think he could have average defense in center field, but I think they'd much rather keep him healthy and see if his offense is still where it once was.
Mm-hmm. Go with the Ronald Acuna strategy that the Braves have employed, except Acuna just isn't even good defensively. That's another discussion.
Acuna might just turn into DH.
A very good chance Acuna is a DH in the coming seasons, especially at a young age, which is a little concerning. Last guy for me, Finn. I think this is the last guy overall, right? For me, he's a very good player. He had definitely a bounce back season. Jose Barrios. This guy, in all of the run predictors besides ERA, right? So his ERA this past season was a 3.6. And this happened in 2023 as well, where he had a 3.6. His expected ERA, his FIP, and his xFIP are all over 4. It happened in last season as well. I feel like this is, for him at least, he's a guy who just gives up a lot of solo homers. And for me, there's very little way to, you can control when you give up homers, but you also can't. I feel like at some point, giving up as many home runs as he does, allowing as many fly balls as he does, and giving up as much hard contact as he does, it's just going to stabilize, and he's going to have a mid-4 ERA instead of a 3.6. How do we feel on Jose Barrios?
Yeah, that sounds about accurate. He was one of the luckiest pitchers this year.
Yeah. And I don't know where his stuff went from 2019 to 2021, where he did seem like one of those really great pitchers. It's just now that his stuff has vanished a little bit. I just don't know what he is as a pitcher. And like he still managed to have 2 really good seasons in 23 and 24 with his stuff being greatly diminished, but I don't know how much longer he can ride this wave. For the Blue Jays, honestly, we had talked about a teardown off the show that could happen with them. Like, sell high on him right now is how I feel about it, because I don't know how long.
I would also like to see if he gets traded to a good pitching team like the Mets. Could he get that step back?
Man, I don't want Barrios. I don't know. Maybe I would. As a 5-star, he'd be fine.
I'm giving a lot of credit to Jeremy Hefner when I say that, by the way.
Yeah, and Toronto has been a pretty they've been pretty decent with like rebounding pitchers to bounce back. So I think Toronto, him being there was a good place to do that. So we'll see with Barrios for sure. That does it for our 10 names each, our 20 guys. Somehow no overlap. That's interesting. Who do we? Were there any other guys that you just kind of wanted to throw out there for a brief second, Finn? I'm going to take that as a no.
Players I liked, I wanted to throw out Blake Snell, who I think had returned to close to 2023 form.
I looked at Snell as well. Yeah.
He had a, let's just say, not good first half that really bogged down his overall numbers.
But then you look at his overall numbers and you're like, wait, he was still really good. Yeah, I looked at Snell.
With that bad first half. Meaning his second half was elite.
Yeah. I also looked at Snell, Finn. I didn't include him here because he's gonna be pretty high on my top 50. Top 100, I mean. Top 50, he'll probably be in that range. So I like the Snell mention. Other than that, that should do it for this episode. Next week's MLB episode will be a review of my 2024 top 100 list before later on in the mid to early off season I'll have my next year's top 100 list, which hopefully, I don't know, we haven't reviewed how I did in 2024, but hopefully I'll do better in that one than the one I did before. So we'll see. That'll be next week's episode. Do you have any closing comments here, Finn, before we finish this one up?
Honestly, I hope I'm wrong on my Trout.
I do too. I feel like I held on to the Trout. I held on to my Trout stock as long as I possibly could. I think this is the year I'm done with it, though. And me saying that now, he's going to hit 47 home runs. We'll see. Maybe that's a little bit of a preview for my top 100 list. Yeah, Finn. That'll do it for this one. We'll see you guys in next week's episode. This should be going out on Wednesday the 20th. We will see you guys later.